Welcome to Season 3 of The Business Gist, where we're always talking about the human side of the bottom line. In this season, we're talking to business owners on how they're navigating the worldwide pandemic, what they're doing to pivot, and how they're making tough choices between people and profit.
On this episode of The Business Gist, we are speaking with Kristin Gaarder, SVP of HR for Amplifon.
Good morning, Kristin. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Business Gist podcast. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, good. Well, just to get our listeners acquainted with who you are, would you mind just sharing who you are and what company you work for and what you guys do?
Absolutely. Thanks, Megan. So I'm Kristin Gaarder, and I'm the head of HR for Amplifon in the Americas. Amplifon is the leading provider of hearing care solutions in the world. We are headquartered in Italy, and in Minneapolis, Minnesota is our regional headquarters for the Americas. I'm just so proud. Amplifon offers hearing care solutions, hearing aid services in multiple different ways. So we've got 4 different go-to-market strategies, 4 different business units, all making sure that people can rediscover the emotions of sound.
Wow. So, that is so important just to be able to make human connection, right?
Oh, you never really think about the importance of your hearing. You think about sight, and you think about other senses that we live with. And then if you think about never hearing birds chirping, if you never hear the voice of your loved ones, if you never hear a baby cry, taking that away is so isolating. And what's been really amazing in the last several years, a lot of research is coming out about the impact of hearing loss on social isolation, on disorders of the brain. So it could be a precursor to Alzheimer's, to dementia, and just really the mental illnesses that fall from that isolation of depression, and really a lot of loneliness comes out of that hearing loss.
That's so interesting, especially in the context of what we're experiencing right now with the shelter in place and so many people in isolation.
Yeah, it's been actually our biggest concern. So when you think about people in our primary age categories where they may have mobility issues, then they also have hearing issues. They could have isolation just naturally because of where they're living. Maybe their family is far away from them. So already being slightly isolated, and then even losing those connections that they have, it is actually, it's almost quadrupling the impact of the coronavirus and the social isolation orders that are happening. So one of the benefits that we have is across almost every state in the United States, we are considered an essential service. So I'm really proud of our governments for acknowledging that hearing and hearing care is an essential service and an essential part of our daily lives. So from an essential services standpoint, we've been able to remain open, and we've been able to continue to provide those services. How we operate is clearly different than how we operated in the past. But I am really thankful that if somebody is having problems with hearing, they can still come in and get the support they need.
So how are you taking care of employees and customers during this time?
Yeah, well, gosh, I would love to say we were perfect right off the gate, that we knew everything we needed to know. But I will tell you, it's an iterative process. It is absolutely a learning as we go.
It changes daily, right?
Oh, daily. So when the coronavirus first kind of came to North America, what we identified was every state, some counties, and even some cities had different regulations as to how we could operate and what we could do. So we actually created an entire work stream around regulatory, just to understand the landscape and making sure that we were following the rules appropriately. From that standpoint, we went instantly into a parallel work stream that was all around protective equipment. So making sure we had masks, we had cleaning equipment, we have gloves, making sure that we did schedule management so that if a customer was in one of our facilities, that we could then have enough time to really wipe down everything, clean everything we needed to clean, and then we could welcome our next customer. And so think about the regulatory environment, the kind of personal protective equipment, and then the cleaning regimen that went into what we call our safe store openings and our safe store protocols.
Both of those, just dealing with all of the regulations from a city, county, state level, and then trying to find all the supplies and just manage that process, had to be a huge undertaking.
Yeah, we starting the last week in February, I actually took a look back at my calendar, and you can see kind of in February having all these normal conversations, somebody in human resources would have around goal setting and performance reviews and merit reviews and bonus allocation. And then all of a sudden the last week of February, my calendar literally clears and you see hours upon hours of conversations around coronavirus. Everything, to your point, around our supply chain, the procurement work streams, the regulatory work streams, the employment, so all of the conversations shifted very swiftly throughout the month of March into what ended up being one highly complicated topic. Yeah.
So as you kind of reflect on that, how you were pre-coronavirus and how you are now, what's the biggest thing that you've learned about your business model?
First, I would say I'm really proud. We go to market in 4 different manners, and I think that diversification of our business has really supported us through this time. I'm also really proud because we are a direct retailer of hearing aids and hearing care solutions, but we also partner with many independents. We partner with different hospitals, ENT clinics. And one of the things I'm really proud about is in this moment, we didn't stop and say, we're going to keep this information to ourselves. We instantly went into share, collaborate mode. And so we instantly pivoted and said, this is what I need to tell all of my business partners, even people that could be potentially competing against me in the marketplace. This was more a holistic approach to how do we get hearing care to any customer that needs it today. And so we pivoted away from, kind of just really focused on our numbers and focused on our results to really how do we help the ecosystem and how do we get all the regulatory information we possibly can to every independent business owner. And so kind of opening up and just really being as transparent in our communication as possible. It's been a Herculean effort. And at the same time, it's been one that has been incredibly rewarding.
That's amazing, especially as you think about, businesses are in business to make profit, right? And we've really created a world where it's compete, right, at any cost.
Oh, yes.
How has that shifted for you? How are you making decisions between people and profit?
Yeah. We took a pretty bold decision that if any of our clinics didn't have enough protective equipment, we shut them down. We just shut them down. And we know that that is a cost. But we know we also have all this protective equipment on, kind of a regular pattern for ordering. Mm-hmm. But in case, right, you happen to lose your last mask or, it's done and you're out, then that's it. You need to close. You need to be safe for yourself. You need to be safe for your clients. And having a protective equipment was critical for us. So, we now have, an inordinate amount of supply, so we don't run into those situations. However, we actually asked every single associate of ours to sign an attestation that said, if I don't have personal protective equipment for myself or my customers, I agree, I'm shutting down. I will not host this conversation. And so, I think that was a bold statement right off the bat. That is our commitment to our employees as well as to our customers.
How did employees respond to that?
Yeah, they were very thankful. I think there's a lot of fear, especially when you consider being on the front line of this epidemic. And our employees are incredibly committed. This is a passion. This is a lifelong commitment for our employees to provide hearing care. And so they really want to show up for their clients. I mean, typically our clients are really long-serving and long-standing. So there's a relationship that goes beyond just, come in, get your ears checked and move on. This is a regular appointment where people come in for cleanings and repairs and just checkups. So they form relationships over the years. So there is an internal desire for our team members to show up and to show up for those clients. At the same time, I think our response and our request, our demand that they protect themselves and their clients was met with maybe relief. That's the right thing to do, and we're watching out for everybody in our ecosystem.
Wonderful. Have you seen any silver linings, whether it's with business partners, employees, or even your customers?
It's been a hard time, just speaking from the heart, speaking with pure authenticity. It has been a really hard time, and not just for me or this business. When I talk to other people in my network, it has just been hard. Mm-hmm. And the longer it goes on, I think the more difficult it becomes. The silver lining for me would be, I've seen people step up. I've seen families come together. I hear my colleagues talk about having laughter and, spending hours at the dinner table, making dinners together instead of running from, 5 different events in the evening. So there's a silver lining, I think, in taking a moment to breathe and to step back and say, okay, let's reconnect and take this as an opportunity to reconnect. From a business perspective, I will say I have seen us accelerate some new business models, some new go-to-market strategies that perhaps we were like, yep, that's great, and we'll work on that, and it's a 9-month, 12-month project. Now that acceleration is really happening. So we continue to invest in what I'll say, some innovation that was already in the docket, but perhaps not as urgent.
We can just that thinking different model, right? It's,
exactly.
Everything's out the window at this point. So you've got permission to do things differently.
Try something new, right? Try something new. And then really to be able to do it quickly, right? Yeah. So giving people grace to say, okay, this is something we're going to try. It's brand new. Let's go for it. Let's just try it. Maybe it's not going to be 100% amazing, but let's try it, launch it, learn and go, right? My favorite saying, this from me, I like to fail fast.
Yeah. Well, I think we're in an environment where people don't expect perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
You've got that permission to fail or not get it quite right or do the best that you could in the amount of time that you had.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of, there's just a lot. I keep going back to this word grace. This is a time where people are just a little bit more patient with one another.
Yeah, I think that's pretty consistent with what I've been hearing from other people too. It's just there aren't any huge silver linings, right? Like this is a super hard, terrible time. But the little silver linings are making those connections, having that time, spending more time with family and people that you care about.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about a mantra? Do you have a mantra that gets you through these hard days?
A mantra. I'm going to keep going back to this term I use, right? This concept of grace is really a concept of giving patience and acknowledging that people are doing their best in this time, myself included. So giving myself a little bit of space to acknowledge that I've never, none of us have ever really done this. We've never really, some of us have lived through the recession in the 2010 timeframe. Some of us lived through Y2K and were working at that time, but none of that compares to the unknown we're experiencing. So I think allowing space for yourself and for others around you to have emotions,
yeah.
be on a roller coaster of emotions, and for B to allow yourself to be in that place of it's not going to be perfect.
Good. Yeah. So last question for you. What business advice do you have for others that are trying to find their way through all of this?
Oh, um, I think my best business advice for this current pandemic is to look 2 to 4 weeks out. So whatever you're doing today is irrelevant. You need to be putting in place something today that is 2 to 4 weeks out, right? So thinking about today, we are still under, in the state of Minnesota, a shelter-in-place order. That comes open on the 18th, but okay, the 18th is great. What's happening on June 1? What's happening June 1? What's happening June 15? How are you going to get through the 4th of July holiday? So everything we're doing right now at Amplifon is not focused on the moment. It's actually focused on what are we going to do so that we're in preparation and really thinking forward. So that would be my one piece of advice.
All right, well, I've got a follow-up question to that. I know I said that was the last question. How do you balance that future thinking with today's needs?
Yeah, right. Great question. Yeah, I'm not sure I have an answer. You stumped me. No, when you think about the balance.
You already solved for today 4 weeks ago.
Exactly, right? Theoretically, I've solved for today 4 weeks ago. No, that's not true. That's not true. I think it's really just allocating the time to plan. We allocate, an hour and a half every single day for Future Forward. Okay. So there is a dedicated time frame of, that's great for today, but what are you doing Future Forward?
Okay.
And so making sure that we spend time, literally an hour and a half every single day as a senior leadership team, we are spending time focusing on Future Forward. And so that's really the allocation, which that daily conversation then makes it a priority.
Got it. All right. So just really setting that intention then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to share what's going on with you and share your advice and your wisdom. So thank you so much for everything today.
Thank you, Megan. It is absolutely a pleasure to see you on Zoom. It is a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us today on The Business Gist. Make sure to follow us at thebusinessgist.com.